Hi everyone, this is Father Sean with another episode of the Couch Chat. And as you might be able to tell, I am dressed up as Pope St. John Paul II. I'm actually filming this in between sessions of our wax museum to discern our potential patron. I basically told everybody I was going to be John Paul II, didn't let anybody else volunteer for it, and I'm okay with that. And you know, I love Pope St. John Paul II. Maybe you've heard me mention him in homilies. Maybe you were at one of the wax museums, but he's always been a saint who's near and dear to my heart, and one of the ones that I've always held as a great patron, a great example, and a great intercessor. And one of the many things about John Paul II is he traveled the world and spoke to young people, old people, people in different parts of the globe, was the phrase, "Be not afraid," was always part of his life and his encouragement and his message. And even at the Mass that he was installed as the Pope in 1978, he said, "Do not be afraid to open wide civilization and culture to Christ. Do not be afraid to let Christ in." And of course, the message to not be afraid is one that's throughout the Bible. I believe there's over 300 times in the Bible that it says, "Do not be afraid," or "Be not afraid," or "Have no fear," something along those lines. And John Paul II was a great man to remind us of be not afraid. And I think it's important, though, to look at our own fears, especially in this Beacons of Light period, to ask, really, what am I afraid of? And I don't mean that in like a condescending way or even kind of a accusatory way, because I too have fears in the midst of the Beacons of Light, in the midst of transitions in the parish and all of those sorts of things, right? Like, what happens if a decision isn't right? What happens if somebody doesn't like me? What if there's somebody that I really have enjoyed all of a sudden no longer wants to speak to me, or says, I can't go to Mass while you're there, I'm going to go to a different Mass. And, you know, I don't say those things to have some sort of pity party for me. I'm just relating my own fears of what happens if I personally get rejected. What happens if there is somebody that says, I no longer practice because of something you did or something you said. And maybe we all have fears in our whole life, and maybe even associated with these transitions in the parish. You know, what happens if we don't feel like we have an identity anymore? What happens if we're afraid where our money goes? To bring all of those fears to Jesus Christ. And so many times when I've recognized in like an examination of conscience, my own fears, my own worries about rejection, about acceptance, about making mistakes or seeming incompetent, or all of those things, to just simply bring those to the Lord in prayer and let Him know what my fears are. And then He has this great ability to answer. Not like in a lightning bolt, not right away. And sometimes it's something somebody says 2 weeks later, something that's stirring in the heart. Maybe it's something that happens in a gospel that's read at Mass sometime soon. But when we bring our fears to the Lord, whatever they may be, if they're things we're worried about, whether it's our family, whether it's our parishes, or whatever it may be, the Lord has a great ability to answer and to give us this great message to not be afraid, because at the end of the day, we have this crucifix here over my shoulder. Jesus Christ suffered and died for us. And reality is different because of that. The world is different because Jesus Christ died for us. We have hope for eternal life. We have the promise of the resurrection. And at the end of the day, what could possibly happen? Whether we're persecuted for our faith like people in Nigeria right now, or whether we're celebrated as a great saint like Pope St. John Paul II. The Lord has already done so much for us, and He continues to do. And that doesn't mean our fears aren't real. It just means Jesus has an answer for them. Jesus is able to come in the darkness with His great gift of light. So maybe this week we just bring our fears to the Lord, whatever they may be. Maybe the fears you're struggling with are things associated with your family, or maybe your kids that have fallen away from the Catholic faith, or maybe a decision that you're really wrestling with. And I'll make that commitment too. My own fears, what do I do with those? How do I bring them to the Lord and ask Jesus Christ to step in and answer them and to heal? And that's the journey we're all on. Whether we're the shepherd in charge of the flock, or whether we're new to the area, or whether we've been here for years, or whether we're just becoming an adult, whatever place we find us in, we all have fears. And we get to bring them to the Lord and allow Jesus Christ to answer, because he's one of mercy. And he looks at us with that incredible gaze of love that comes from the holy face of Jesus. And so may we just ask for John Paul II's intercession, asking him to show us the mercy of God so that we may not be afraid. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you at Sunday Mass. God bless.